Hi, Stacey.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? Can you hear
Good,
me?
good.
All good?
Yeah,
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me.
no problem.
I got to commend you on your work. You did an
Thank you.
incredible job. I think you and your team knocked it out of the park.
Thank
I
you.
was thoroughly impressed, and I think most of the population who has watched this show is thoroughly impressed as well. For
It
bringing
is the most feedback I've gotten on any of my projects, 100%, which is crazy.
amazing. It's well deserved because
Thank
you're filming in a time where location filming in LA is not the popularity,
you. Nope.
but you have managed to pull it off. Could you tell me a little bit about this project, how you got involved? What was the beginning of this?
Well, how I got involved is I worked for a regular producer, and he, thank God, got the job. So I, in turn, got to tag along, and yeah, we really lucked out. It was an honor, and with Seth. Seth and Evan are the writing partners that help put this together. And Seth being the number one on the call sheet, as well as they directed all the episodes. So he was involved entirely.
My goodness.
Yeah.
That's kind of a it's sort of unusual for the number one call sheet to be involved in locations so heavily because usually they just throw it to locations department or kind of work with producers to figure out what would be the best solution for the script. But it looks like there was very clear decisions that were made from the beginning about which locations they wanted to choose.
Yeah, and I would really love to take all the credit, but Seth is actually more of a savant than anybody thinks. He's not just a goofy stoner. He's an architectural buff, and in every script, he specifically named locations. So it's not like I had to go out and find him six houses to look at. He specifically wrote things like the Garcia house, or he wrote Chateau Marmont, or these are very specific stories that he and his business partner have experienced in Hollywood, and he wanted them. So in the beginning, I thought it made my job easier to just go out and get those locations that were named in the scripts. However, it did pose another layer of stress that I wasn't expecting, and that is the location he wants. I have to get it. And so, there was some hiccups, like the Garcia house in particular, didn't make it because it had just recently exchanged ownership,
Mm,
and they were in the process of incorporating the property, and they were going to let us shoot there. However, the legal process hadn't been completed, so maybe on season 2 you'll see the Garcia house.
very fun.
But for the most part, a lot of those locations were written in, and he was very specific to every Lautner house he wanted in the show.
That's incredible. So I have read other interviews that one of the key inspirations of this was Los Angeles Plays itself. There was
Yes.
this documentary that was involved that kind of brings Los Angeles as a character in the show. Um, what was the process of getting those locations? Because I know that Los Angeles kind of is a character in the show in itself because you're
Yeah.
dealing with high driveways and you're dealing with
Yeah.
traffic and you're dealing with these incredible boulevards. Luckily, you're getting away with it because some of it is shot at nighttime, like that
Yeah.
incredible Chinatown episode.
Yeah.
What was there hiccups that you were like, oh my goodness, I can't believe we're pulling this off?
Well,
Or
there's always hiccups when you're shooting in LA. I mean, LA, I'll be on my deathbed still trying to figure out how to make it easier to shoot in this town. Um,
speak on that because I know that people say that it's hard to film LA, but I don't think that people think that it's just because of the permit process, that it's expensive.
no, it's everything. It's everything from the residents to the businesses to the politics of it all. I mean, we've kind of we've kind of created this monster that LA has become. Cost wise, it's way expensive. And I've been doing this 25 years, and I've seen one mansion in the early, late 90s was 25,000 a day, and back then that was crazy. I've seen that same mansion go back down to 15,000 in the 2000s, and then I've seen that same mansion now wanting $60,000 a day.
Oh my
So,
God.
and it's we we got to stop paying those prices, right? If we want to keep filming here. So, yeah, there's always those hiccups. And
Yeah.
again, we didn't have a lot of money. The studio, that was,
Oh,
it was the
really?
first season. We didn't know it was going to turn out the way it did. We didn't know it was going to be as successful. So we did not have the budget that it looks like we did on screen. We
Ah,
really didn't. So there were some favors pulled,
good.
and so on and so forth. But yeah, there were quite a few hiccups. I mean, I can go each episode and tell you, but um, let me give you probably the biggest hiccup. Is Seth wanted Chateau Marmont.
Yes. Oh my
Chateau
God, I love
Marmont
it.
is the perfect example. Chateau Marmont used to be extremely film friendly. I have probably filmed there at least a half a dozen times in my career. Never had an issue. When we approached them, it was, yes, you can film here. It's great. We're going to do it. And subsequently, what I had gotten was that Andre Balaz, the owner,
Yes.
had just recently fired his marketing team. And he decided that he was going to move into Chateau Marmont from, I think he lives in London normally.
Yes.
I could be wrong, but he moved into Chateau Marmont to oversee it at the same time that we happened to be there.
Oh,
And so that location got very expensive, and we did not want to pay it. The producers didn't want to pay it. I didn't want to be the location manager that paid it because it was going to become unfilmable. And what Andre Balaz did is he put on a $150,000 intellectual property fee. So on top of the location fee, which is not cheap, he wanted an intellectual property fee to use Chateau Marmont.
like
And we all know,
he's copywriting the space?
correct. So
Wow.
he said he would get rid of it, but we couldn't shoot it as Chateau Marmont. And no offense, there's no reason to shoot there if you can't shoot it as Chateau Marmont.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we went back and forth and back and forth, and let's just say Seth offered to cover some of the additional costs, and we ended up shooting there. It looked fantastic. It was great, but again, unfortunately, I'm afraid our show will be to blame. That nobody will ever be. It's cost prohibitive to shoot there.
Oh my goodness.
Hopefully, we can work something out with them, and that changes. But yeah, that was probably one of the biggest hiccups, and it made me sad because I just don't want him to think that people are going to pay that because we did.
Yeah.
So
To be honest, I cannot remember the last time the chateau was featured on TV, and I think this is such a
it's,
great homage to the space because it is the
yeah,
perfect blend of old Hollywood
yeah.
glamour and like working networking space. Like it's a place that people go to
Well,
have meetings and lunches and
and it's funny you say that because we literally went scouted there, and Chris Rock was sitting in the lobby, and Seth went over to him and was like, "Hey, you want to be in my show?" Like it was Hollywood imitating Hollywood, like right in front of our face. It was
it's
it was really
incredible.
funny.
It's
Yeah,
incredible. It's a beautiful space, and
it
I'm
is.
happy it was seen on screen. But this is an example of what happens when you get this mentality that, oh, everything shoots in LA, it's gonna be fine. We can charge for these prices, but they just end up moving to Idaho or Nebraska, and it's like, my goodness. Uh,
Yeah.
you spoke a little bit about your career. You said you've been in the business for 25 years. I know that you started with the Princess Diaries. Is that
I
correct?
started with NYPD Blue.
Okay, okay.
And that was on a very small level. And then I did get into the union on Princess Diaries.
Oh,
Yes.
wonderful. NYPD Blue, was it shot in NY or was it shot over
No,
here?
I shot in LA. Yeah,
Wow,
I shot in LA.
ironic. Very fun. That's
Yeah.
one of the things that I think is beneficial as a person who has been in the business for so long. Any career that you're in for more than 20 years, you have a little bit of a string to pull. But if people know Stacey Brashear, location mistress, they're going to be able to.
The older I get, I feel like I got to change that email.
No, it's so badass. They,
Okay.
but I think that they say Stacy has a good reputation. She's going to take care of us. It's going to be fine. We want to work with her. And I
Yeah, I
think
try to
one of
keep
the,
that good reputation. I
yeah,
do,
I mean,
especially with the film LA, any of the you know people that we have to deal with. I try to not be. you know, a pain in their ass, because then when I do need a favor, or if, I fuck up, and we all fuck up, if I
Yes.
didn't get the permit in on time, or anything, or need an extra, rider on something, then they're willing to help me. I don't want to
Yes.
be the one that's always calling in for reinforcements.
No, and I think that your consistent career kind of is like proof of that. This is not your first Apple TV show either, right?
No, so the producer I work for, he's like what I call their golden child.
Oh,
They love him. And so I don't know if I've been lucky, or if I'm really just putting in the work for everybody else to follow. I've worked consistently for Apple for the past 5, 6 years. And it's either been Apple for Apple, or say ITV for Apple. Right now, I'm doing a project that's 20th television for Apple. Um, so we've kind of gone through their growing pains. Apple has a lot of work to do
yes.
to smooth out some things. They're getting a little bit better. They have a bunch of tech people that are trying to go into this industry. So trying to let them know that the tech side is not working for the TV movie side. So they
How
are getting better.
how
Yeah.
fascinating.
But
Yeah,
they
this
are
is
really putting out the best content. It's insane.
between Severance and the studio, I don't think that there's anything better on TV. I love
Thank
it
you.
so much.
Yeah. And what I do love about the feedback from the studio is all of my industry people, like other locations people, or just other people that work in the industry that I know, they all say the same thing, that they watch those episodes with anxiety. Like they can feel, like, especially the oneer. Like when I read the oneer, I was like, oh my God. Like I was like, ugh. And same when you watch it, we watch it from a different perspective. That anxiety level is through the roof, where other people are just watching and like, what a doofus. Like he just keeps getting in the way. But really that anxiety, you feel it
It's
100%.
100% true.
Yeah.
My sister said this is going to be the funniest show. This is the funniest episode you're going to watch, the oneer. I
Yeah.
watched it, not a single laugh came out of my mouth because I was so
Stress.
anxious for this crew to get this shot. And it turns out I read another interview where this actually kind of mirrored real life because
Yeah.
the whole house is made out of glass. So what was that? I mean, first of all, something that people might not know is that these huge historical houses, you have people coming in with carts and C-stands and people
Very
walking
stressful.
with walkies and everything starts adding up these little dings.
One of
So,
our executive producers, writers, actually on the director scout ran into the glass window.
oh,
So we always kept making jokes, but we're like, make sure you put up tape on the window so nobody runs. He didn't break it, thank God, but he was embarrassed.
that's hilarious. That's hilarious. I love that. First of all, talk about your team. What is that like? Because I know with
Oh, my
locations,
team. I'm obsessed with my team. I'm such a type A personality, control freak. And so once I got a team that I can trust, that allows me to sleep at night, and I know that they're going to handle their business, uh, it's wonderful. Yeah.
amazing. And do you want to shout some of them out? I know you.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have Shyann Guzman, I have Allison Cox, Stephen Lee, Rich Heichel, Marty Cummins, Joey Indrieri worked on the studio with us, and Darnell is my closer. I stole him from Film LA, and I have zero regrets. He's the best in the business. Yeah, and Cynthia Gonzalez is my office coordinator, who does a gazillion contracts and inconvenience fees like nobody's business.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What was the process for scouting this? Because Seth has them all in the script. Are you coming up with like backup locations for the mansions?
So we had to do a couple of things. So, like, for example, the Garcia house, I had to track down the new owner, and of course, it was God, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the Hyatt family bought it, and so I had to track them down. And the good news is, I believe we tracked them down through a cannabis business, which
Oh, hmm.
I clearly had some contacts there. So yeah, so we were able to track them down and get permission, but again, that fell through. So last minute, I scrambled, and that's where I got Kelly Lynch's house, the Lynch house, which
Oh,
is
yes,
there.
yes. That's
And so that house is typically worth every penny, but it's typically about, I think the asking rate is normally about 40K a
wow.
day. So I had called and I said, please, would you do it for 30? Which is, I'm not, it's not pennies, right? I mean, I wasn't like,
Oh, no,
you know, underbidding her drastically. And I said it was going to be Catherine O'Hara's character's house. And she's like, oh, that's one of my best friends. She was just here for a baby shower. So her and her husband so graciously agreed to the 30K. And we were, and I took Seth and everybody over there. And of course, they were like, oh my God, this is great. This house is fantastic. And of course, it's so much easier to shoot than what the Garcia house would have been. That would have been not easy at all. I was dreading it.
That's my other question because something that other people who are not akin to locations might not know is that you have your location, but your crew is not parking there, your lunch is not there, nothing is there. So you have to find base camp at a place that's convenient, that's like a 5 minute round trip, that'd be
Yeah.
able to, accommodate the crew. So
Yeah.
was this an easy process for you in LA?
Um, well, LA is the word easy and parking in LA are just not synonymous. No, our parking is just atrocious lately. I
Yeah.
mean, thank God for Florentine Gardens and Hollywood Presbyterian Church
Okay.
because yeah, that helped a lot. And we have also gotten more accustomed to making further moves, which is unfortunate. I
Yeah.
remember a 2 mile move would be your max. Now we're like 6 miles. Yeah, we can do that. Like it's no
Yeah.
big deal because we have to. We're just running out of space. All of our surface lots are going. And
Yeah.
then when you do find a good surface lot, in particular, like by the Roosevelt Hotel, they want 30 grand a day. I mean, it's insane. And of course we're paying those prices. Nobody else is paying 30,000 a day. I'm sure Jimmy Kimmel, when he sets up his stage in the back, isn't paying 30,000 a day.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and then that's the other thing. Businesses here, Apple TV and a Seth Rogen show, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna max them out with the money," but they don't know that there are people behind this that have to negotiate for reasonable prices,
yeah,
so that you can keep these locations in this area. So that's just
yeah.
really,
But they also think, oh, you got these big actors, and so you guys have money. Or Apple, that's what they say too. Is they're like, Apple has all the money in the world. I'm like, yeah, their tech side does. Not
yeah,
they're babies in this business. And listen, we all have budgets. It doesn't matter how much money, you still have a budget that you have to stick to. And and again, it's like we want filming to come back to LA for everybody, for the dry cleaners, for the mom and pop pizza places, for everything. But everybody's got to take a breath and go back to what is reasonable prices, not what they once got in the 90s when we had all the big action movies shooting here, and not what they've gotten in the past, but what they can get now. And that's, I feel like, unfortunately, we have to be the teachers of that. We have to educate people. And when somebody shakes you down for a certain amount of money, you got to go, no, I'm not doing it, and
yeah.
then just break the news.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a sign of a great location manager is somebody who's able to stand up against people and say, you know what, I know you, I hear you, I know you got to pay your cover and your mortgage and you got to get the clients and the customers and you got to pay for that day, but we want to work with you and we like the space. So
Yeah.
I think that's really great. Is there a white whale of locations that you have like
100%. That is the Beverly Hills Hotel.
the Beverly Hills Hotel? Oh my
They don't
goodness.
allow filming, but maybe one day.
They don't allow filming.
No,
Interesting.
the only filming they allowed is for their inner, like their inner ads, like for their to show on their TVs or whatever. That's all they do. So, of course, I think that's. I mean, it's kind of funny. I mean, it's Hollywood.
That's a good one. But I do want to say that for anybody watching, the Beverly Hilton and the Chateau Marmont are probably the hardest locations to accommodate because these are no locations that are not only Hollywood centric, but they don't need filming. They don't need us to be coming in because they have clientele that's
No,
coming.
and Chateau Marmont made that perfectly clear. We don't need the advertisement because we were kind of hoping, because it is Apple, that we are allowed to do special thanks, and we are using the names as what they are intended.
Yeah.
So we were kind of hoping, like, hey, we're gonna help you out. And he's like, I don't need that help. And I was like, he's got a good point. He really doesn't. Um, yeah, the Beverly Hilton, though, that was a doozy, I'm sure. And Seth and Evan and them have been going around talking about the logistics of that. That was really hard because I had contacted them very early on, like in November. We didn't start production until January, but I had already gotten some scripts and stuff. And so I made contact with them and they were like, yeah, we'll do it. And Danielle there is amazing. I love her. So what ends up happening is they schedule for their pool and parking structure to be demoed
Oh,
during the time we were going to film. And so and we were like, well, it's a ballroom, we can just go to any hotel ballroom and shoot it. And this is where Seth was like, no, I'm shooting it. And it was actually really a cool experience, because at first I was like, it's a ballroom, just shoot a ballroom, right? And he's like, no, because I go to the Golden Globes and it's a very special, it is a special ballroom, it is different than most ballrooms. um and they were going to shoot it exactly how the Golden Globes shoot it, in live television form. So we had the company Encore come in and shoot it the way they shoot the Golden Globes, and then our cameras behind them shooting. So it was quite a thing. So Seth was like, nope, we're going to shoot there. We're going to shoot there. So we pushed that episode to the end of this, closer to the end of the schedule, so that the demo can get started. But it's still, of course, construction's never predictable. So it wasn't finished in time. So the way our show works is we shoot a oneer. All of our episodes were shot as oneers. So our rehearsal times were 6 to 8 hours a day. And then we would shoot for 2, 3 hours, 4 hours. So we would still shoot like 10-hour days, which is crazy. So we would do all the rehearsals during the construction time. And then at 4 p.m., when the construction was done, we would then shoot.
oh my
And
gosh.
so, yeah. And
Oh,
he was just very insistent that we shoot there and it has to be there. And so we did it, and I'm glad we did. It was an experience.
yeah, I heard it was construction, but I didn't know it was demolition. My goodness.
Demolition, like jackhammers and parking structures, and yeah, it was wild. it
Oh
was
my
it was
God.
crazy. Yeah.
Uh,
And so if you see the red carpet or the pink carpet, it's the red carpet because we didn't get the pink,
uh,
but the you'll see that where the parking structure is, there's like plywood where they put up a sign, Beverly Hilton. So that was all
oh my
demoed.
God.
Yeah.
Um, so circling back to the houses, you
Yeah.
mentioned one of the homeowners, Kelly Lynch. There's two houses. So we have the Carling house and then we have the
uh
Silvertop.
Silver top.
Yes. Talk a little bit about that experience and what was the positives, what was the negatives, something that was nice about working with these people
Yeah.
because these homes don't I really can't remember seeing them on
Well,
television.
Silvertop is gorgeous, but Silvertop is probably one of the most expensive houses to shoot in Los Angeles.
Wow.
Um, if you were to shoot there one day, I mean, we were able to negotiate a slightly better price, because we were there for 5 days. It was a fight that we shot the whole
My
episode basically
God.
there. So we were able to negotiate a slightly better rate, but it's upwards in the 60K a day.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it's one of the most gorgeous houses you'll ever. It has a 360-degree view. You get the reservoir, you get downtown, you get the Hollywood, you get all the way Wilshire Corridor. It's really a beautiful house. The homeowners are awesome. They're super sweet. They spent a lot of money renovating it. They're very house proud. And so they were great. Logistically, it's not an easy house to get in and out of. The good news is you can access the house from the top street, but then also from the lower street below. They have a driveway that leads up, and that's the one where Seth drives the car up.
Yeah. I,
But getting equipment up there, it's an ordeal.
that was a doozy.
It was definitely doozy.
The Carling house, that's Matt's house. What was
Yeah,
that like? Because that's at nighttime and the swimming pool was so beautiful.
it's
Everything
such
was,
a cool house. It is such a cool house. Yeah. That was one of those houses that I lucked out. Catherine Myler, God bless her, has all the good houses. And that one had just recently became open to filming. And I won't say who, but it's actually owned by a very famous fashion designer. So
oh,
I was surprised. And he is, oh my God, I would love to be his best friend. He's the sweetest guy ever. And he opened it up for filming, and we couldn't have been happier.
oh
It
my God.
was it was a good little gem to find. It's not a big house. It's everything you need, but
No, it's beautiful. Oh, first of all, wow, all of so I think that what's so beautiful about your show is that you guys kind of recreate a lot of the key locations on lots. So like
yeah.
I saw Chinatown and I was like, "Oh, they shot in Chinatown?" No, this was a recreation on a lot. That was particularly interesting.
Yeah.
Was it like a fairly easy process working with these lots because of the situation that we're in right now?
Well, Warner Brothers is fantastic. Warner, I love them. But I do have to say we challenged them. There was a lot of times where they have set prices, but they're used to us shooting on backlots. They're used to us shooting in the houses, in the little towns, in the jungle. They're like, oh, we have set prices for these, and we're like, no, we want to shoot in between this stage and this stage, and they're like, oh, all right, well, let me get back to you on how we are going to price that out. And it also did make my this show 90% locations because we were on stage. Our only stage was the studio interior. That was our only stage.
Okay, yeah.
So, essentially when we're out on the back lot, that's becomes location department locations.
Yeah.
So it was and good and bad, the industry is very slow right now. So was the lot at times. And so we were able to kind of pull things off that we wouldn't have been able to do in past when studios were packed. We did have to develop some relationships with the other shows on the lot. Like, for example, I had to get used to being able to see equipment. That was the weirdest thing. I was like, "Oh, we got to move this," and they're like, "No, we like that. Like, leave all those golf carts. Like, that's when I was like, but there's a 10-ton. They're like, all right. So all we would do is we had magnets made for the trucks where we would slap on Continental on a truck that was like either a Warner Brothers truck or even a Fox truck that was there. We would just slap that on for our shot and bring in studio things like donkeys and horses and props that are in between the stages, fun stuff like that.
I have to ask because one of the funniest episodes and something that I literally gasped was when the burrito gets thrown, the golf cart crashes. What was that like? Is it VFX? Is it what?
That was VFX.
Okay.
Trust me, that was one of the craziest, longest conversations. We were originally going to, because the lot didn't have enough space, like for what they wanted to, like an actual build. And trust me, we were going to build that and crash it and everything. So it was like, okay, so we had to find a stage that had a big elephant door that they were building it on in the interior of a stage, and then the car would then go through the interior of the elephant door in the stage and then collapse it in there. And we went back and forth. And so finally we built a small version with a blue screen, and we were able to do that there in between two stages.
Oh my God.
But yeah, that was lots of discussions. I think once we got the budget of actually building and collapsing it, we were like, visual effects,
Yeah.
easier,
Yeah.
slightly cheaper.
Yeah.
So that's where we went.
Um, I am particularly amazed among all of the other locations that you managed to get near the Lake Hollywood Park. I don't
That
even.
used to be my secret, like, gem, my hidden gem, because I filmed there 1,000 years ago on a movie called Valentine's Day,
Oh,
and that was another movie that was an homage to LA. It was a love story to LA,
yes.
and so I had these iconic areas that Gary Marshall wanted to make sure we got. And the Hollywood sign was one of them. So I was like, oh, the soccer game, let's play at the dog park. So it was it was always my hidden gem until Instagram came along and bleh. So now it's just riddled with, people taking pictures and which was really funny because every time we scouted it, because even Seth was like, this is crazy. I didn't even know this was up here. This is amazing. We were up there and he was scouting with us and there was so many people taking pictures of the Hollywood sign. Nobody knew they were near Seth Rogen. And it was so funny because I'm like, all these people are going to go home and they're going to like look at their pictures and be like, is that Seth Rogen right there? Because, they're all about taking pictures of themselves and not seeing what's going on around them.
Oh my.
But yeah, that's always been one of my hidden gems, not so hidden anymore. So
I think that one thing that, we think that it's the neighborhood's going to be an issue, the residents are going to be, might be an issue, or, Film LA might be an issue, but sometimes the city council gets involved and people, so,
yeah, they were actually very sweet. So I
really,
always grab Nicole whenever I feel, because listen, we all know we've had our issues with the Parks Department, and they do as much as they can. They got bigger issues that they got to work out with the city. But Nicole's always great. I'll always make her come. I'm gonna be like, listen, this is going to be a big thing. I need you to come do a walkthrough with me, and her and Carl came out, and I was like, I want to do this. You know what? We're gonna have condors. We're gonna have a big rig. I need to do a lane closure. They needed to. We had some people roll down the hill into the park.
yeah,
And all this sounds easy, but we know when you get the parks involved, you can't move their plants. You can't do this. You can't, you can't dig. You can't. So I was like, I just want to do a walkthrough. And yeah, and it just worked out. I mean, all of those elements were on the page, right? So I'm like, okay, where's a park that I can light, that they can roll down a hill, they can run up, get hit by a car. So the street has to be there. And it instantly came to my head. I was like, it's there. It's there. It's got to be there.
oh my
And
God.
so it actually went a lot smoother. The only difficult people there, quite honestly, are the ones above.
Yes.
The neighborhood down below, they're
Yeah.
lovely. They're
Okay, okay. It's
Yeah,
it's
they're
it's all the elites up there. Oh,
yeah, it's only one. I'll be honest, it's one woman. That's it. I won't say no names, but it's one woman. Other than that, it's fine.
I have always heard that it was that this location was kind of undoable, but it turns out it's not. So there is hope for this
Nothing's
location.
undoable. I think half the time you just got to get all the right people involved. And I did speak to the council person that is in that area,
Yeah.
and they wanted to know. They just wanted to know how we were going to make people happy,
Okay.
and just let them know what we can offer for night shoots. If they want a hotel room, great. If they want us to black out their windows, we can do that. But for the most part, it was a noir episode, and it was meant to be dark. So we didn't overlight it. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Yes, yes. And I think that worked out in your favor. It turned out beautifully. I think that was such a fun
Yeah.
episode to watch. So you guys actually go out of LA for 2 episodes,
Yes.
CinemaCon, which was really fun. Um,
That that okay. So that probably should have been my white whale, but I didn't list that because I actually got it. But me and the producer and the UPM were like, we got to get this. We got to get this. And so I was petrified because the Venetian historically have turned down most projects.
wow.
And and if you saw those episodes, it was pure debauchery. I mean, it was drug use. It was us in fountains. It was him in gondolas. It was if any scripts were going to get denied, I thought that was it. And we had originally approached, Caesars and like we approached a bunch at first, just to cover our asses, right? Like, let's make sure that we get at least one casino. And we Seth didn't want it. Seth wanted the Venetian. And I'm so glad because I mean, it's not overshot. Everybody shoots at Caesars. And it's great. And Caesars, thank God they allow filming. But Elaine, who was my contact at the Venetian, she was the best. And but we had approached them early on, like in January, and started the process, started the scouting, started the courtship, right?
Yes.
We flew out there maybe at least once a month, towards the end, like twice a month. We text scouted, Seth FaceTimed with her. We director scouted and we even text scouted before we had permission. We still hadn't had approval. It had gotten down to 2 weeks before we were supposed to shoot there. And I literally couldn't sleep at night. I was like, only locations people know this feeling where it's a combination of you want to vomit and poop your pants at the same time. Like you don't know, like, and I kept sticking my head in the sand going, okay, it's gonna work out, it's gonna work out. And then I was like, I just gotta pull the band-aid. I gotta know, can we shoot here or not? Because I don't know how we're gonna pivot 2 weeks out. Like, I don't know what we're gonna do. So I was like, I really need to know. She's like, I should have an answer for you. The head of their media relations and have it. And I was like, please just let them know, we do drugs, but we brought them from LA. We didn't buy them at your hotel. Like, I'm trying to lead the witness and how we can shoot there. And she's like, we know, Stacey, we have a sense of humor. I go, okay. And I'm sitting in the office and I'll never forget, Elaine sends me a meme of Britney Spears in a party hat going like this. And I was like, and I'm running around the office to my assistants. I go, what does this mean? What does this mean? And I was like, so I text her, is this good news? And then she calls me and she goes, it's Brittany, bitch. Of course it's good news. And I screamed. I mean, I still get goosebumps. I screamed so loud. I ran up and down the production office screaming. My producer came running out and he looked at me and he's like, did we get it? And I was like, we got it. And he was just like, oh my God, he was elated. For a couple reasons. One, I mean, it's 2 episodes of our show. It's our finale. Super important. But on top of that, when you film there, they don't charge you to film there.
Oh.
So it literally was our saving grace. It
Oh.
was not only the best production value you can get, but they don't charge you. I mean, so the rooms were comped. Um, the rooms are comped for the crew. We had some stuff we had to contend with because there was a huge Hewitt Packard convention where they had most of the hotel booked up. So there were some obstacles we had to go through, but for the most part, the location fees are comped, the rooms are comped. We pay very low prices to feed in their back of house commissary cafeteria. And then we just have to pay for things like when we filmed in the theater, we did have to pay for all of the techs. We had
Okay.
to pay for, you had to pay for things like that, like for the pool, for the lifeguards, we had to pay for their lifeguards, things like that. But, and then of course the gondolas are a separate vendor. They're considered an amusement
Oh.
ride. So we did have to pay for that. But for the most part, the production value we got was through the roof and it was great. It was a lot of fun.
So
It
that's
was,
just kind.
it was insane. I mean, my assistant, Steve Lee, and I'm sure he put on more because he had his Fitbit on the very first day because it's 2 casinos. It's the Venetian and the Palazzo.
Yes, okay.
It is, we walked 27 miles the first day because you're not allowed to store all your equipment. Everything has to be back of house. Everything has to still look pretty. So, you can only bring up very little equipment. It has to be hidden. And so we're running back and forth. And, they actually call the corridor underground that connects the two part of the 15 freeway. Like
Oh,
it's like it's
really?
just as long as you can see, and it's so big. But yeah, we were exhausted, but it was fun.
I heard a little bit about the feat of this, shoot, but I didn't know. My goodness, you couldn't even store equipment close by. That's
No, and they flew me out on Friday. Sunday was when the crew was arriving for a Monday shoot.
Oh,
We had just gotten approval. I didn't even know where we were staging. I didn't know where our production offices were going to be. I didn't know where anything was. So I flew out on Friday. And when I did the walkthrough for the space, and they have very strict rules, and I get it. It's a very, if you want to feel safe, go to that hotel. They're
mhm.
very safe security wise. So like even our trucks at the loading dock, they can't stay there and they have to be on appointment. They have to have reservations to come in and out, and they download and then they have to go away. So I was like, okay, so we're going to download all these trucks. And in my head, I'm like, it's a casino. They have all these huge rooms. And so she showed me this one room for the stage, and I was like, this is not enough space. Like I panicked. I was like, this is not enough space, especially to download like a whole company. So thank God by Saturday we had worked out a couple different areas, because we had like 700 background for Comic Con,
Oh,
and I had to get those people ready, so we had to have hair and makeup stations, costume setups, all this stuff. And a lot of their ballrooms were being remodeled at the time. So
oh.
we couldn't even use them. So we found some space. It was tight, but we did it. It worked. But everything was just down to the wire. It was nail biting all day, every day. And I think by our third day there, we kind of settled in and we got kind of a rhythm going, and it all worked out.
Stacey, wow, good
But
job.
2 weeks in Vegas is way too much. I'm sorry. It's and Vegas is not cheap anymore. I had to go home. I was like, I can't even afford to work here. It's expensive.
Yeah, it's changed. It's it's
It's
it's
changed a
not
lot.
the retro fantasy that we once have.
No.
It's yeah, and there's a lot more people now. It's a different space, but wow, that was a really
Yeah.
fun episode. 2 episodes. Those were really great
Yeah.
to see. Something that I wanted to know a little bit more about because you're so great at your job is working with other departments because sometimes locations can be pushed to the side and say, "Oh, that's their own department. We don't need to really communicate with them. They'll handle it." But you need to talk to
No,
the
I'm a pushy broad, so that doesn't really happen. No, and again, the producer that I work with often, he also hires the same people. So I'm super great relationship. Transportation, I've been with them for years. Our grip, our electric, our best boy. Yeah, we're kind of a family, which we don't. I haven't experienced that until them in a long time. Like that, when you used to do the 22 episode network TV shows, you used to have that. But when you're doing these, you know, uh, streaming service shows or whatever, if you're just going one to one, you don't have that family connection. We do have that on here, I think, with especially with this team. So
amazing.
we do communicate.
That's wonderful. It's always really nice when Transpo cooperates with you. You know, that's the next closest department to locations is just
That's my advice to any location person that's coming up. And I have gotten the best advice I ever got, and as I'll tell you this, give transportation what they want. If they ask for 1,200 feet of posting, give them 1,200 feet of posting. If they want a base camp here, if they want this, get it to them, because they're the ones. If you don't do that, then moving in the next morning is going to be
yeah.
it needs to be smooth. And if you get them what they want, it seems to work out. I've always gone by that, and I always make sure I get them what they want, and I don't have those issues. I
Yeah.
hear horror stories where transportation people will tell me, I asked for this and I show up and I have 300 feet of posting. I'm like, how do those locations people sleep at night knowing you asked for 12 and you're rolling up, and they're standing there with their coffee like, well, this is what I got. Like, I would not be able to sleep and show up the next
No.
morning, show my face. Like, get them what they asked for because that's what they're planning on.
Yeah. I think all great locations people, they have kind of like a little bit of an insomniac in them because
Oh,
they're up before everyone else and they're going to bed after everyone else. I mean, they're there at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. with cones and posting and those yellow signs, and they're the people that have to make sure that everyone lands correctly. And I give huge props to this department, and it's something that I've really found joy in, is because you're overseeing everything,
yeah,
and everyone wants to work with you if you do a good job. So that's the joys of this job.
great.
Okay, so Stacey, a little bit of a wrap up. I want to
Yeah.
know you mentioned a little bit of your advice, of course, with working with transportation.
Yes.
What is something that you would tell young women, people that are trying to get into this film industry right now, maybe specifically in locations if they want to
Yeah.
transit?
I mean, I think the one thing that I do love about my job, and I think it's very key, is you have to understand that you are going into the industry, but you are also still very in touch with civilians, right? You have to, shake the hands, kiss the babies. You got to talk to the neighbors. You have to be able, which is great. It keeps you humble because, then you work with the people that don't talk to civilians and you don't even know how they function on the weekends. You're just like, how do you go about your life without a free map and a free breakfast? Like, I don't get it. But you have to be able to still talk to the public and keep that personality, and then also be able to finesse the entitlement and spoiledness of the other side of it. You have to be able to do it both, and having an outgoing personality is key. It
Yeah,
really is.
yeah. Is this something that you actually take on as an LM? Do you actually go out with your clipboard and you speak to the residents and you say, "Hi, my name is Stacey"?
Not anymore. I've
I
kind
think
of
I think you've earned.
I've kind of don't do that anymore, but I will do that if it is, you know, a very important location. Absolutely. I will do that. And or if I feel, it's one of those situations where they're like, you have to get this like if you're in a Pasadena type situation where you're like, you have to get this neighbor on board. I'll do that. You
Yes.
know, I'm you just I'll take on that responsibility.
Mhm.
But for the most part, I have a trusted team that I can trust to do that.
That's wonderful. And I want to say, any other projects that you've worked on, have you experienced that you were, I know that this is probably something that's a lot of people, a lot of LMs, I know that many LMs that I've spoken to have experienced this, where they've gotten a project and they're like, oh, we're going to be filming in LA. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be a movie. It's going to be coming here in 2 months, and then it goes away.
Yeah.
Is this something that you've experienced lately? Is this something that
Um,
you can speak to, or have you been lucky enough to just receive a bunch of projects that have like, we're
I
going to be
think
filming in
I
LA?
think I've been lucky enough to receive a bunch of projects that have actually gone forward. I mean, I've had stuff fall through,
Yeah.
and I'm always very superstitious. I remember years ago, if I ever had a project to go to, I was wrapping out a project and they were like, "Oh, this is going to start in 2 weeks." And I'd be like, "Okay, I'm not going to do unemployment or anything like that." It would always fall through. So I would always go because unemployment's a pain in the ass, right? So
Yes.
you wouldn't get it for 2 weeks anyways. And I'm like, I'll already be onto something. I'm just not going to do that. It's a nightmare. Every time I didn't do it, it would fall through. Every time I would do it, I'd get the job. So I was like,
Oh
so
my
weird.
God.
I'm very superstitious, but yeah, that would be one thing.
That's a great piece of advice. Okay.
Just
That's
don't get
actually
cocky.
no, yes,
Don't
absolutely.
just assume it's coming because that could be scary.
That's wonderful. One other question that I have that I
Yes.
just remembered is what is your routine? Like what time are you waking up typically for production on these busy days or normally, like and what
Well,
time
that's all. Yeah,
going
it all
on?
varies. It all varies. I mean, again, um right now I'm lucky I'm on a beast of a show. It's a monster.
Is this
Of course,
Imperfect Women?
it's Imperfect Women and doing a lot of night shoots. So thank God my hours have been fairly normal.
And those are always really great is working at nighttime because the residents are already tucked in their beds. It's just the lights that you got to deal with and maybe noise control and making sure
Yeah.
that everyone's happy. But it's always really nice
Well,
enjoying.
especially downtown LA at night. We've been doing a lot of downtown LA at night. So that's when
And what is that like? I mean, is it do you feel unsafe? Do you feel happy? Is it
No, well, we're kind of shooting in the financial districts of
oh
LA. We're not,
the
we're not on
artistic?
Skid Row. We're in the better parts. But we did have to contend with that protest they had yesterday, so that was a nice surprise.
Oh wow. Okay. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. All of the fun things about LA. But this
yeah.
was an absolute joy. Stacey, you
Oh,
are
thank you.
a wealth of knowledge. I will speak to you again if you will
Yes.
speak to me. And I want to hear more about Imperfect Women, but I have to commend you again for your I mean, listen, I posted this on my Instagram and people were like, I can't wait. The studio's my favorite show. This is gonna be amazing. I can't wait to hear all the stories. So I
Oh my
think
God,
that
I have stories for days. I didn't even get to tell you my lobster story.
please, no, no, we have
Okay,
time.
really fast. This was my story that I
No,
wanted
take
to
your
tell you
time.
that when you asked if I had a behind the scenes. So
Yes.
at the Venetian, I'm so worried about the drug use. I'm so worried about, them saying we don't want, people in our fountains to think that, that's okay for them to do when they come here. I was so afraid of all that stuff. The one thing that the Venetian pushed back on is we wanted him to, Bryan Cranston, to reach into a lobster tank and take out a lobster and walk around with it. They said, and it was funny is I didn't even think about it until they said this. They're like, no, we don't want you to kill a lobster for your scene. And I was like, oh, you're kind of right. Like I didn't even think, and I'm a huge animal lover. Like I was just blurting it out because it's my job. And I was like, oh shit, you're right. And they're like, no, absolutely not. We're not going to allow that. So I went back to the producers and I was like, well, the only thing they pushed back on is this lobster. So we had to have the lobster made at a prop house. That lobster cost us $12,000. So that lobster that Bryan Cranston is walking around with was a $12,000 prop lobster. So in case any animal people are wondering, no lobster was hurt in that scene. But yeah, that was the one thing I was like, out of all the things they pushed back on, I was like, all right.
Venetian, animal friendly. Love
I,
it.
and me too. And it was so funny. I was like, I feel like an asshole that I didn't even think of that, but you're right. I don't want to hurt a lobster for the scene, but you know,
One thing I have to say is that everything was turned out beautifully. There were some scenes that were cut out, correct? Is there a location that didn't appear on TV?
there was a whole episode that got cut out.
What?
Yeah, there was a whole episode. It was an episode where they do screenings and they get feedback on but it was hilarious. It was funny. I'm not 100% sure why they cut it out. I just think I honestly I think maybe it was because they wanted to do 2 episodes for the finale,
Yeah.
but it was just an episode that they just
Was it filmed
scratched.
somewhere special?
I'm sorry.
Was it filmed somewhere special?
Well, no, well, AMC theaters. We were going to shoot, because it was a whole
Oh,
screening. They were going to screen the movie, and then they were going to interview them, and it was kind of like this battle of the directors. It was funny, but maybe
I
it'll show
know.
up in season 2.
I know this story. I know the story because I heard that AMC was a little bit too expensive.
Oh, you heard? Okay, yeah. So we were going to do it at
No, I
Regal.
don't because they've been going around town and they actually went on that the town podcast, which is what I
Yeah.
listened to with Matt Bellany, and they were like, "Yeah, we couldn't film at AMC because it was so expensive." I was like, "This poor location manager probably worked really hard for it." But
Well, and and I think if we had if we had really, they would have come down a little bit, but I don't think they would have come down enough. And that was another location where it was multiple days. Like if you do one day at 30,000, it's not that big of a deal. But when you're doing 5 days, it adds up, and it was crazy. And I think they just, and Seth and Evan are very smart. They're like, I'd rather that money go to something else. So
that's
it
wonderful.
worked out.
I love
But
to hear
again,
that.
you might see it on season 2.
I
I
can't
don't
wait.
know.
Yes,
I'm very
apparently,
excited.
yeah, apparently Matt is like friends with the AMC head of the operations, whatever it is. So I'm excited to see that. Are you prepping for season two? Are
Not
you
yet. We start that in around September.
okay?
So,
Wonderful.
yeah.
And so the studio, kind of like a final question, the studio is filmed on a stage. Is this Mayan temple? It was an exterior of the on the
Yeah.
wall.
So we, of course, again, him being such a architect buff, he really the Frank Lloyd Wright, the Lautners, some of his faves. And so he wanted that. And so Julie Berghoff, oh my God, she's my fave. I love her. The production designer, she did such an incredible job. So that interior was built, and then the exterior was the executive office, the TV executive office at Warner Brothers, and we built a facade with the blue screen extension.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so
Beautiful.
that was yeah,
Okay,
fun.
Stacey, you've been such a wonderful guest. Thank you
Oh,
for
thank
coming
you.
on.